Welcome to the Reality Check. Today's show brought to you by me. So I changed up my settings here a little bit. Maybe I'll be a little bit slow today, but hopefully not so much. Anyway, big things in the news. What do we have? Of course, we had the embassy open in Jerusalem. What else can we say about that? Of course, never a right time to do it. These people never agree to it. Did it have to be done now? No, it didn't. I mean, it was a pretty peaceful time, but it was a promise Trump made, so he kept it. Um, it is what it is. I mean, unfortunately, Israel should have a little bit more tact with it, but I mean, because you got to try to at least be a little bit more sensitive. Some people will be agitated by this. I don't know. It's just a bad situation, unfortunately, over there. But with both sides somewhat culpable. Um, so that's as much for that as we could say. Of course, we had North Korea threatening to cancel the Trump summit. I mean, you know that he's just trying to bargain for more. It is what it is. I'm sure the summit will still happen, and at least we're closer than we ever were in that sense of the, you know, that sense of it all. What other things we have going on this week? I mean, of course, we have, as usual, the Mueller investigation, some voter fraud. There was a woman who stole IDs and voted in the last three presidential elections. There's a case in Texas, and they're going to prosecute another person who's going to be prosecuted for voter fraud. Yet you constantly hear, well, we don't need voter IDs. We can't even have Mexican voting standards here in the U.S. That's what we get from our fellow worthless people. What else can we say about that? Um, Daycare fraud. There was an interesting case that's been unraveling in Minnesota. Um, the investigators discovered that daycare centers were, basically taking money from the government and then funneling the money through the Middle East. Now, what was happening is started about 5 years ago, and daycares, they get their government subsidies to help the low-income families, with their childcare expenses. But there were surveillance videos that were showing that parents were checking their kids into the center, and then a few minutes later, they're leaving with their kid. Of course, obviously, the daycares would say they had the kid for the whole day, and then you see sometimes these guys handing out actually envelopes, which obviously are kickback payments to the parents who partook in the fraud. So this thing's been going on for 5 years. They say it's multiple, like 10 daycares about that are involved in this. So obviously we hope to see some prosecutions for that. Most of the money was going to basically terrorist organizations in the Middle East. So we had, of course, breaking this week. Obviously, a lot of things breaking in the investigation against Trump by Mr. Mueller. And nothing here is good for Mueller, as you can see. Mueller had his own Russian conflict, right? The FBI had one of the oligarchs who was it Oleg Deripaska. He was actually trying to help Mueller rescue a hostage in Iran, and it was believed to be the retired FBI agent Robert Levinson. He was captured, 11 years ago, 2007. This Russian oligarch, Oleg, spent about $25 million in private search and had a rescue team at planes fueled up. So Andrew McCabe was one of the key people. They now fired Andrew McCabe, according to this guy. And they needed Deripaska to evade bans on spending money in Iran. The rescue mission had fell through. It was when the Clinton-led State Department backed out. It's kind of sketchy on why that was. But so it's weird. Mueller had left this guy out, obviously, who had ties to Paul Manafort. And this guy did say that the FBI quizzed him on the dossier, and he told them that it must have been a joke if you actually think that Manafort, which he doesn't like Manafort, they're bad business deal, but he was saying that it was a joke if you think actually Manafort is or have anything to do with Russia. Like, even though he doesn't like the guy, that's pretty absurd. So, I mean, there you go. You got new details on that. Here it is, Mueller tied to somebody dirty again. Um, and obviously he was pushing this whole fake stuff all the way through. And still no evidence. So we're pretty much almost on 2 years. If you see some of these people, like this guy, Deripaska, Mr. Oleg, even before they had they were trying to push this stuff. This was before the Carter Page FISA warrant. So they got that and found nothing. Again, everything excused for fake information just to see what Mr. Mueller can get. Then we, of course, have the star of CNN, the guy who should host his own show because he's on CNN more than most talk show hosts are. And that is the lawyer for none other than Stormy Daniels, Mr. Avnati, right? So here's a guy talking about character, insulting and assaulting the character of one President Trump. So here's a guy who's acted with malice, fraud, oppression. He paid no payroll taxes for years. None. Here's a guy who's been involved in shady real estate deals. So he didn't even file his law firm's income tax returns for 2014, 15, and 16. This is a lawyer. Here's a lawyer who went to bankruptcy court. How does a lawyer get bankrupt? He also decided to quit paying his employees Medicare and Social Security taxes, stiffing them and stiffing the IRS of, millions of dollars. Yeah, pretty sad. So anyway, recently it's come to light that, because everyone was curious, like, who's paying this guy? It's obviously not Stormy's not paying him. But, I mean, Aventi should be a case for prosecution. IRS should get him easily. They've hammered people for much less. But what we see is that he got paid millions of dollars to pay that back. And now he's talking about people insulting his character, and it's not fair because you can insult Trump because he's the president, and you can insult this person and that person. Very interesting web he weaved, right? Very interesting. Here's a guy firstly, it's pretty pathetic if you're a lawyer and you go bankrupt. I mean, really. Yeah, I can't even find that. Even if you're a bad lawyer, you still get paid. How do you go bankrupt? So obviously this guy's a con artist, a scammer. It is what it is for this guy. Now you have Human Rights First, just junk organization. With their why won't CIA Director Gina Haspel acknowledge whether the CIA's brutal interrogation techniques were immoral? And they're saying they can tell you right now because torture is wrong, period. Now, what's wrong is letting Americans die. Would you have to torture somebody? I don't care. These people were terrorists, they're criminals. You're not grabbing people off the street to torture. You're taking criminals, and if you need to torture them, amen. Hey, let me tell you something. If there's a guy that kidnapped somebody, and you have the proof of it, and they're not telling you where that person is, then you have to crack their head open or whatever you have to do to get that information to save that person's life, amen, do it. Sorry, but it's very important to save lives and not the lives of criminals. And we had the whole big shindig this week about a private meeting that somebody said that, McCain's dying, what do we care anyway? Obviously, not a classy comment. It's not something I'd say, but McCain and his buddies shooting the mouth off. Now, McCain, firstly, half of his friends have no credibility. They're rogue and nasty characters. McCain himself associated with the Syrian rebels, And I mean, McCain even employed, a staffer that was fired for falsifying her resume, claiming she had a PhD, and hid the fact that she was working for the Syrian rebels. So the guy should focus less on the quality of other people's employees and maybe more on his own quality of his employees. It's just pretty pathetic. And then here in the media, like, talk about him like now all of a sudden he's a hero, he's a war hero. That's great. Yeah, when he was running against one Barack Obama, nobody cared less about him. They called him a piece of junk. They didn't care that he worked both sides of the aisle, that he was willing to compromise. Whichever. We had this week, of course, Seattle voted on charging a tax per employee. Now, the city council actually wanted to go with $500 per employee, and the mayor said, "No, I'm not signing this." So they got it down to $275. So you have businesses that I want to say it was maybe 20 million a year they do in sales or whichever in Seattle. They're going to pay $275 per employee they have. Just an absurd charge that's going to cost the customers more. And what's it for? It's for the big homeless problem in Seattle. Yeah. Well, when you give people free, you're going to have more homeless. I mean, it's just, that's the way it is. And part of the reason why there are so many homeless is because a lot of people want to live their life. Don't get me wrong, a lot of it's mental illness. I get that. And we can talk about that one day and blame Jerry Brown, governor of Florida. His dad was the one who put the mentally ill on the streets because he thought it was their right. And that's unfortunate. There are other people who aren't as mentally ill on the streets that think it's their right to do what they want. And they want to do what they want. So as long as they get the free stuff, I'm not listening to the man. I'm better than the man. I'm going to do what I want. And you think that it's uncommon, or people that have never reached out, they think like, oh yeah, this is not true. It is. Trust me, I know. I'm not saying that. Like I said, a lot of it is mental illness. That's why a lot of people are homeless. But there's also people who you can even offer them a better way or offer them something in life, something solid, and they would prefer to not do that because they don't want to deal with going to work. They don't want to deal with whatnot. I mean, I know when I worked for Food City, we were a manager, and there was a guy that we noticed was living like on the property, and he was living in a truck. And I don't even think it was his truck. It was just an old truck that was left there from, I think, a business that went out of business. And so we saw the guy. We bought him some chicken. A few employees chipped in, bought him chicken, tried to help him out, and we talked to him, got him some water or whatnot, and we found that he used to actually work for the company a long time ago. So one of the managers went out of his way and called up the company that found out he left on good terms, and they told him that this manager told the company the story, and they agreed to hire him back at the wage would be now. It was like $15 an hour. And so then the same guy, who was amazing, not me, no, it wasn't me, don't worry, not patting myself on the back, but this guy went out and got a place for this guy to live, rent-free for 6 months. It was an apartment, a legitimate apartment. It was through a church, but they were going to take care of his rent for 6 months, and after that, he'd have a chance if he wanted to pay and stay, or if he wanted to find his own place. That was his business. And so he was offered a job at $15 an hour, place to stay, and he turned it down and said, "No thanks. No, I don't want to be where I want to come and go as I please and do what I want," is what he said. Is that mental illness maybe, or is it just some people want to do what they want and they don't care? That's the most important to them, their quote-unquote freedom or pride. I don't know. But, I mean, that's what it is. And when you continue to give those people the free things, I guess not so much pride if you're willing to take free stuff on one hand, but that's what's going to happen. Another sad but true story. Yeah. Now let's see here. Former CIA Chief John Brennan was leading the counterintelligence operation against Trump. Nothing new there. North Carolina teachers want to tell you how they're doing it for the students, and of course ditch school and protest for pay raises because over 6% pay raise is not enough. They're doing it for the kids. woe is me. We're doing it for the kids. Let's see. We had the NCAA. Wait, nope, not NCAA. That's wrong. That's college. NAACP's president claimed he was racially profiled by a police officer, and the cameras show otherwise. What else is new? We also had some lady I know on an airline. She missed her flight, tried to sneak onto the next flight when she was told to leave because she didn't have a seat on that flight. Then she called it racism. What else is new? We want to thank Barack Obama for the world that he created. He set us back 100 years in race relations. Thanks very much, Barack Obama. Let's see, what else do we have here? Spike Lee going on the profane tirade about Trump at the Cannes Film Festival. What else is new? CNN, the leader of fake news. This is a great one. Well, it's not great in the sense of it's great. It's just another. I mean, yeah, really. So CNN's Chris Silza, I don't know if that's his name, posted and he later deleted, of course, a gift of President Donald Trump that appeared to show Trump in the crosshairs of sniper rifle scope as he spoke Tuesday morning at the annual National Peace Officers Memorial service held on the grounds of the Capitol in Washington, D.C. So, this Silza dude, never heard of him, don't watch CNN, but he captioned the image with the line, killed in the line of duty. So Donald Trump was pointing to the heavens to commemorate police officers killed in the line of duty. And of course, this guy had the scope rifle crosshairs right at Donald Trump. But he deleted that GIF, ironic name for the picture, about President Trump. And he says, we use GIF Grabber to make our GIFs. And it defaults to the image below, and he shows his little thing. To clear up any unintended confusion, I removed the tweet. Yeah. Okay, so the GIF imager also wrote, anyways. What a fraud. In any reputable company, this person would be fired. But what do we have here, Where's the Secret Service? Taking this dude off in handcuffs. Let's send these clowns to Gitmo. That would be great. Let them have their military trial for threatening to kill a sitting president. It's the same thing. That's funny. They got all bent up about Sarah Palin and their crosshairs on the map. And, What else do we have there, Pope Francis hints at retirement. Yeah, that couldn't come soon enough. I'm sure they probably want him to retire. Worst Pope ever. I mean, just a absolute ignoramus. I mean, it would be a joke if I told you some second-rate bouncer that was promoted to Pope, but unfortunately, that's actually the real story on this guy. Twitter, after denying they shadow ban people, actually admitted it. Obvious as day. Let me tell you, I could tweet I pooped and I can get 40 retweets. I can send out the theory of relativity, and nobody looks at it. But what else can you expect from people who only like certain types of speech? Let's see. The judge ruled that ballots in the Wasserman Schultz race were illegally destroyed. We know that. That was from way back when. Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I think that we don't have to worry about as much because hopefully with the Imam case, and they keep on delaying that one, the IT guy she had that she didn't fire, that had no background check. I keep on delaying that. The government doesn't want you to see what's going on there. But we know when they get that rolling, hopefully Schultz can go down to the count because, this guy's going to turn on her. And, he's going to turn on her like you couldn't believe. And then, of course, we had the thinking brain, Bette Midler, blaming Trump for the 52 Hamas supporters storming Israel border, their deaths. Now, one, um, Trump had nothing to do with that. I know that he moved the embassy and that made them mad, but protest them civilly. Or actually, who really cares? I mean, to be honest, who cares where the embassy is? You know, it's the same old thing with these Palestinians. Look, they had their land at one point. It wasn't in Israel. They got to live peacefully because they were pretty much nomads. They didn't have land, I guess you'd say. They tried the same stuff in Jordan. They tried to take over their land, and Jordan kicked their butt out. Nobody cared less about them. And then they were attacking Israel. People loved them and got behind them, and their flotilla, and they need to, and this and that. So then Israel stepped up and even gave them a piece of land, and all they did is send bombs and junk all over, Molotov cocktails every day over the wall. So unfortunately, they're in the bad situation they're in because they choose terrorism over, you know, their own civil liberties, pretty much. They give away everything just to support terrorists. And these are the same terrorists that put their kids in front when they're getting shot, and they shoot bombs from hospitals, rockets, and they know it's going to come in, and they don't care if it's a school or whatnot. They couldn't care less as long as they get to say on TV, look what they did. You know, yeah. Whichever, I don't know. But there was actually a pretty funny video, though, that I did see the Gaza Strip. There was some, I don't know, it was a kid, maybe a teenager, almost an adult, and he was on crutches, and all of a sudden he learned how to run pretty quick. It was pretty interesting. I don't know, it was the miracle of the Gaza Strip. What else can we say to that? Miracles do happen, they really do. Now, what do we have? We have, it's time for the UFC 224 review. As I said, weak main event, kind of a weak card in ways. There were some interesting fights below it, but on to the recap. So the first fight, we had Victor Belfort against Lyoto Machida. And I had, for me, it was Belfort getting his last hurrah, winning a split decision. And in reality, people can say Lyoto Machida's back or whatnot, but I didn't see as much of that. He caught Belfort with a kick similar, not the same kick, but similar to what Anderson Silva did, and they knocked Belfort out. This is a really good kick, and Belfort afterwards, so it was his last hurrah. He actually retired. Good for him. The guy's been around for a long time. For Machida, huge win for him at least because he's been, struggling for a bit. So to get back, it's 2 wins in a row for him now. That gives him credibility, and it'll give him a chance to step up and see how he can do or go with somebody else. But for Belfort, it was a really good career. The guy was successful every place he fought. All you need to know is this guy had been in the game for, literally, was it 23 years fighting? And constantly fighting. Here's a kid when he came up, he was 18, he was in the UFC. He looked really good. I think he had some of the fastest hands I've ever seen out of a fighter, just in general on Belfort. When he was younger, just the fights, some of the fights he had when he knocked out Vanderlei Silva, and everybody knows Vanderlei Silva was a tough dude. He just came across the ring, and it was, it was like, one of those like cartoons where you see someone, and he just, I've never seen hands that quick. Vanderlei Silva didn't even know it hit him. Just stuff like that Belfort did. And even Belfort, like they were saying, even when he lost at times, remember when he stepped up the last minute to fight, John Jones was way bigger than him, and he caught John Jones. He was the closest person to ever finishing John Jones. Amazing, just the excitement. He was always exciting to watch. So, good for him. He had a good career. I'm sure he'll probably do something MMA related, and good for Machida. He gets himself back in there. Next fight was John Lineker, Brian Kelleher. Now, I had Lineker for a unanimous decision, and ended being a third-round KO for Lineker. And he just looked good. It was kind of what we thought. Um, Both those guys were pretty impressive in their. I mean, in their last 18 fights together, they only had 2 losses. But I thought that Kelleher didn't ever have the competition that Lineker's fought against, and that's why, to me, Lineker just looks good, man. I mean, wow. I mean, he just looks good. I mean, his last loss was what, to Dillashaw. Lineker just looks tough, and he's pretty quick. I think that's where he lacks. Like, he's pretty quick against these guys, but when he's fighting like a Dillashaw type, and maybe a Garbrandt, if Garbrandt were to win the title, that's where he might be a little slow against. But Lineker, man, he is tough. He takes punches and he hits hard, and he comes after you. He's definitely not backing down. So in shape too. Good fight. I mean, I don't think for Kelleher, he lost, but he didn't decrease the stock. I mean, he lost to a quality opponent. It was a game fight. He was, in there. He had his shots. Just Lineker's he's there. It's his time, and Kelleher still got, he's got a chance to improve and get better. I mean, he looked good. Next fight was Mackenzie Dern, who we know missed weight by 7 pounds, pretty embarrassing, against Amanda Cooper. And the fight was pretty similar. I thought Dern would look better this time, get a second round submission is what I was thinking. And she ended up actually getting a first round submission. But the surprising part was she actually started to strike with Cooper, and she actually caught Cooper, knocked Cooper down. That's what actually set up her submission. She actually stunned Cooper, and then she got her, and that was it. And we knew, like, once Dern could find a way to get Cooper down, she would take over the fight. Now, she says she's going to work on this weight thing, and she wants to stay at the same weight. UFC made it known they actually would like her to go up a weight class. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess you give her the next chance. She makes weight. Okay. She doesn't. It's like time to go up. But she looked pretty darn good. I mean, I know Cooper's a 4-3 fighter now, 4-4. So, but I mean, that was Dern's next test, and she passed it with flying colors, except unfortunately for the weight cut. So hopefully she can get back in there somewhat soon. I know she said she wanted to take a little time off, but it'd be nice to see her somewhat soon, get that weight under control, and really, pound it out and see how it goes. The co-main event, Kelvin Gastelum versus Jacare Souza. I thought Souza would be a little bit too much for Kelvin. I know Kelvin's tough and finds a way to win, and I thought Souza would get the unanimous decision. And man, when you saw the first round, Souza came out and he dominated that first round. He had his way with Kelvin. And I know retrospectively, or what is it, the Monday morning quarterback, people were saying that Souza gave too much that first round. I didn't see it that way. I thought he was actually pretty composed. He could have went all in a lot more, and he didn't. He was somewhat, held back. He actually had a decent rate. And then just to see the second round, how Souza came out, I mean, he could barely stand up. It was crazy. Like, something else had to be different. And I was reading, he was talking about how there was no sauna in the hotel there, and he ended up doing a lot of extra jump roping, and it hurt his legs and stuff. Because his legs, he came out in the second, he looked wobbly. And of course, Kelvin's always game, and he just came at him and kept on coming at him. And the fight could have went either way. It could have went either way. Kelvin won it by a split decision, and no wrong in that. I mean, Kelvin was the aggressor the second and third round. Sosa had some good shots, especially in the third round, but he looked gassed and sloppy, and I'm sure that's why the judges gave it to Gastelum. He looked fresh. He looked like he could continue, and for Sosa, he just looked rough, even though he, put a game effort as far as he tried, but man, his legs were just, in between rounds, he could barely he wouldn't even hit with anything, and he could barely stand up. It was crazy. But so Kelvin wins. He said he's waiting for a title shot. I don't know about a title shot. I mean, he wasn't that impressive, I mean, Sosa was pretty much barely alive after the first round, and Kelvin couldn't put him out. So, I mean, he's definitely got heart, and in any fight, at least Kelvin will give you your money's worth. He's not going to turtle up and be scared of anybody. If you needed somebody to step in on the title shot, okay, but I don't know. It wasn't a super performance worthy of something. Now we had the main event, which, to me was just a disappointment to even schedule this fight. I mean, we had Amanda Nunes, who was too scared to fight Cyborg. She ran off. That was her next logical opponent. That was the only person, because there's nobody in her division to Nunes really that you could say can give her a challenge, just because there are people that retired, there's people that she beat, and then there's just the I don't know, it's just lack of quality opponents. Pretty much when you got everybody win one, lose one, win one, lose one in the division, it doesn't make any excitement, And it would have been nice for her to fight Cyborg. It would have been a no loss for her. Everybody knows Cyborg is the champ and bigger than her, so if she loses, she doesn't lose her title. No harm, no shame. It is what it is. If somehow she knocked out Cyborg, she'd have 2 titles and be known as the greatest woman fighter ever. Pretty much, no question about it. She chose not to do that. She ran, and now she ends up fighting Raquel Pennington. Now, Pennington, like I said in the beginning, she's tough. She'll stay with it. I thought Nunes would get a 4th round TKO. That was the prediction. I thought Raquel was tough enough to stay in there. I thought Nunes would be just too quick for her. And, for Pennington, though, one of the things that scared me is she was coming off a 1.5 layoff. She was in an ATV accident, and she hadn't fought for a 1.5 years. So to come off from a 1.5 years and have to fight a championship 5-round fight, which is not something she's used to, there is a huge difference between 3 and 5, a huge difference. In a 5-round fight, you have to watch out when you're going all out. You have to think, oh, if I can't get him out this round, now I have 2, 3 more rounds. In a 3-round fight, pretty much once you're in the second round, you can go all out. You can find a way to fake it and make it in your last round of a fight. You can do it. You can find a way. So that was what scared me about it. It wasn't a good matchup. Not exciting at all. And then when you're watching the fight, ends up Nunes wins in the 5th round. It was a TKO. It was probably, I don't know if I want to say one of the worst title fights I've seen, but they say Pennington's corner in the last round, she said in between the rounds that she was done. And I don't think they knew that her nose was broken. They probably wouldn't have let her go out. It was hard to tell till after when you saw her eyes getting black. Then that was a telltale sign her nose was broken. So I understand the corner trying to keep her in there. They probably didn't know the nose was broken. If they did, they probably would have just let her go and thrown in the towel. But for me, it was just watching the fight, like, what the corner, I don't know, and I don't know if it's the corner of the fighter itself, but, like, what was her game plan, I'm asking. Like, she just stood there flat-footed most of the fight. She had her set, like, she literally was almost backing up to the cage so she couldn't move, and then Nunes could hit her. And, like, that was 60% of what she did. She just stood there, then she would back up to the cage, no trying to stay in the center, no coming at Nunes much. I mean, it was just flat-footed most of the time. I didn't understand what the game plan was. She didn't try to mix anything up. She didn't try to wear and lean on Nunes to get her tired or whatnot. And then you hear these people like, I'm tired of, like, announcers like, every fight is great. This fight was great. This fight was Nunes looks so, she's in such good shape. You saw what she did in the 4th and 5th round. I didn't see anything good out of Nunes. I mean, okay, I shouldn't say that. She did her job. She won the fight. She did enough to beat Pennington, but I didn't see her pouring it on. I didn't see her in the 4th and 5th round come out with all this energy. I just saw Pennington wasn't doing much. She really wasn't doing much. She had, sorry, there's a fly here I'm trying to get as I'm talking. She had no game. Like, I don't understand how you go to any fight above an amateur level with no game. But, like, I don't know what her game plan was. And I don't know anybody who knows what her game plan was. It was just staying back on the fence. How is that acceptable? I mean, I don't understand. Unless you thought that your opponent sucks so bad, you're going to do whatever you want. And I know they didn't think that. They had a lot of respect for Nunes, and they should. She's a champ. So how is that a game plan? It made no sense to me. Um, I mean, just I don't know. She didn't do any dirty boxing. She didn't push forward. She didn't try to wrestle. And I understand you're going to say she was not going to get a takedown or whatever the excuse is. Um, but she did. She did get Nunes down. And then what was puzzling was the first round she got beat up. The second round she was getting beat up a little, and then she reversed it. She started actually moved forward a little bit. She got Nunes a few times. Then she gets Nunes down. And then I was thinking, like, to be honest, scoring the fight, I'm thinking, man, if she could get a shot or two in here at the end, she could take this round, I think. It's really close, you know? And a lot of times when it's close, that the judges are going to give you the benefit because they don't want to see a fight that's no chance of winning. If it's 1-0, they'll probably be more likely to make it 1-1 as opposed to 2-0. At least give yourself a chance. And she gets up off of Nunes for no reason with like 15 seconds left in the round. Puzzling to me. I'm like, what is the point of this? You're on top of her. One, make her carry your weight, tie her out. Even if you don't get that round, you have a chance to tie her out a little. Throw some shots. One gets in there. You cut her face. You change a fight. A cut on somebody's face, changes a fight. I mean, I didn't get the whole game plan at all from Pennington. I don't know if that was her corner, her lack of fighting in the last year and a half, but it was horrible to watch. You're like, can I give this girl some direction or what? I don't know. What do we need to do? I mean, this is for a title fight. And then, yeah, I mean, and I don't think the corner did it wrong. I don't think they knew her nose was broke. And I don't care if your fighter's getting whipped for 4 rounds. It's a title fight. You're going to send them out for the 5th round. And people say there was no chance of her winning. You never know. You catch something, you hit somebody slips, you hit them somehow, you cut them open. You never know. I mean, that's why they have those fights. People have come back from being down way worse than her. So, and then there was a Bellator card that night, and King Mo got crushed by Arizona State's own Ryan Bader. So he really popped that cork, and he'll move on in the heavyweight Grand Prix. News coming out this week more in the MMA. Chuck Liddell, crazy, coming out of retirement. He's been retired almost 8 years, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm off by a few, but he's been retired for a while, and he's in his 40s. And he got knocked out of his last I think at least 3 of his last 4 fights. He got knocked out cold. So he's thinking about fighting Tito Ortiz. So Tito, who's retired, would come out. That would be just, I don't know. I mean, it's like a old timers league kind of thing. Kind of interesting, the names, and they have bad blood against them. So in that sense, it'd be interesting. I don't know, but if they're gonna put it on, like supposedly De La Hoya is supposed to start his own MMA and make that the master fight, that's pretty sad. It's a master fight in your card. That's kind of something that maybe a 3rd fight down, like right before the co-main event, you're like, get the old spirits flowing. Oh, let's see what these guys got. And then they both go off in the sunset and one more big paycheck. Good for them. I can't begrudge. I wouldn't tell somebody to not do something they enjoy their life or get paid for, but unbelievably, then Chuck Liddell started talking about wanting to fight John Jones. And of course, typical John Jones said, come get some. I mean, Chuck Liddell, I think it's crazy, but you gotta be crazy. I mean, yeah, maybe in her prime, you would have a puncher's chance against John Jones because you hit hard, but John Jones has a lot of tools to stop anything he had back then, and now, oh my goodness, yeah, no way, just crazy. So back to the UFC part of this. Let's see, fights that, I don't know, no interesting fight. I mean, the card was just, I don't know, it was rough, and like I don't see any of the fight. Of course, we want to see Dern get a bigger test, and we want to see, I don't know. I don't think Kelvin should. I don't know. I don't think he should be fighting for the title, Kelvin. But Lineker maybe. maybe the winner of Dillashaw, and Gerhard. That would be kind of interesting. Um, I don't know. But next one, at least, man, as bad as this one is, we hope and pray there are no injuries or sicknesses or failed drug tests. Because the next card, 225, which is on June 9th, that one's in Chicago. That's a really stacked card. That is a really stacked card. I am liking that card. It is definitely some good fights on there. And it started CM Punk versus Mike Jackson. I know everybody's hating on CM Punk, but I mean, he didn't fight some bum off the street last time. The UFC gave him opponent Mickey Gall, who's a pretty good fighter. Way too much for this guy's debut. I'm sure CM Punk will do better this time. He's fighting Mike Jackson. It's an interesting fight. You know what? It's interesting. It is interesting to see people cross over sports and to see what he's got, to see how serious he is. This guy is later in life. He doesn't need this. He doesn't have to do this. So it'd be interesting to see if he can have some success. And then Arlovsky versus Tia Tuvasa. Interesting fight. Let's see if Arlovsky can keep the career going. Alistair Overeem versus Curtis Blades. Very interesting fight. We'll see if Blades can step up to that next level or if Overeem starts knocking on the door again for another chance. And then, of course, we got, Conor McGregor's alter ego here, Colby Covington versus Rafael Dos Anjos. Now, that's for an interim title. Very interesting. For the welterweight championship, the interim one. Covington, I don't know. I don't know if he's ready for this, but it's interesting. Dos Anjos has been on a tear, and so is Covington, but this is his first, really big fight. I know he beat Damian Maia, yeah. But Covington's look good. The dude's like, 13-1, and, so, he's won convincingly in his last bunch of fights. That'd be interesting. And Dos Anjos, we know him, former champ at 155, and now he looked kind of horrible near the end of that after he lost the belt, but man, he seems to be back on track, and this weight's doing him good. So that ought to be an interesting fight. And then the winner of that, that'll be good to unify the titles again, of course. And then, of course, a rematch, Yoel Romero and Robert Whittaker. Very interesting fight. Whittaker just looks good. He's coming off a layoff, though. He looks quick and what heart and smart. And Yoel Romero, the guy's just a tank. He could end this fight at any time. He had his moments in the last fight, but he gassed at the end there. So did he learn from that? Did he work on that? Did he evolve? Or is it going to be the same thing? Or is it going to be Romero doesn't even let it get to that? Does he empty out that tank and go for the win and do what he can? It's hard to tell, but yeah, that ought to be interesting. I can't wait for that card. Like I said, hopefully everybody stays in good health for that. So let's see, what do we got here? Maxine Waters, blabbing as always. And of course, the Democrat mistake betting on Mr. Michael Avenatti, who they thought was going to save the party with good old Stormy Daniels there. Every day you learn. That's pretty funny. Every day you learn about this guy. He's just a bigger clown. I'm sure he's angling for a show when it's all said and done. But after he doesn't do the job, because he won't, him and Stormy Daniels will, do the walk of shame eventually and be gone. And then he won't get that job on CNN. Sorry to say. John Kerry, can we arrest this guy? Not only for his stupidity when he brought James Brown to sing on behalf of slaughter victims, not only this clown with his bad Iran deals, with this stupid humor with his military lies, throwing his medals over the fence. I mean, not only all of that stuff, but now he's interfering, meeting with Iranian officials. What's he promising them? Can Donald Trump get on gas prices here? Gas is starting to go up a lot. So we need to do something about that. I mean, with all the fracking and stuff we're opening up, we need to see some benefits on it, because that's one thing that'll keep the economy moving is keeping those gas prices low. If they continue to rise, I mean, it's getting to a point where it's getting rough out there, and that would be good to get those down, especially for the summer driving. I mean, yeah. We had California, of course. We have to not go by a week without good old California. So a report finds that cases of STDs reach an all-time high in California. The number of cases of sexually transmitted diseases in California last year spiked, and it's really concerning because there have been a lot of stillbirths due to congenital syphilis. More than 300,000 cases of chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis were reported in 2017, a 45% increase from 5 years ago. They're most common in under 30 years old. Now, you were thinking probably when you first heard that it was because of Viagra and all that stuff, that it was coming on the back end of that. It's no Sun City. People from Arizona knows what that means. But it's no Sun City that's doing this. It's, I guess, the under 30 crowd in California. They say budget issues are part of the problem. So $20 million in state and federal money is allocated yearly to fight STD with 40 million residents. I mean, firstly, why is California spending $20 million to fight STDs? It's common knowledge, whatever they're spending the money on, which is these stupid commercials or dumb stuff like that, here's your STD on the grill, or whatever their junk they're saying, waste of money, waste of time. It's like writing the note, you better clean after yourself. People that don't clean after themselves aren't going to read your note. And people who don't care, they know about their they know about the value. We teach it in the schools. The information's everywhere now. They don't care, they're not going to care. You put another commercial on it, and to spend more money on this stuff, it's just a waste. You know what? Some people have to pay for their sins. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. The reason why they're going up the cases is because the lack of caring. If it feels good, they just do it. The lack of family, these people aren't trying to make families, they're just trying to make themselves happy. So they're on to many partners, and that's what the increase of the STDs come from. Many of the partners were, before they were starting relationships, now they just don't care. You know what? Whatever. Who cares? Who cares if I remember their name? Who cares if I wake up? And the rampant drug use, of course, lowers the inhibition, and boom, more diseases, because they are not thinking about protection or anything at that time. And that's it. And of course, pushing of abortions too, that gives people, I don't need to use protection. Who cares if I make a mistake? I'll just abort it. And unfortunately, that's one of your big problems there too. Yeah, they might think that's a get out of jail free card for them, but they'll still get the STD. So you'll have something to remember for that the rest of your life. So, that's pretty much it for that part. Now, let's see, there's a interesting one. So, Barack Obama was supposed to be opening up a center in Chicago, and a federal lawsuit filed by a Chicago nonprofit is trying to block the Obama Presidential Center from being built in Jackson Park. They accused the organizers of pulling an institutional bait and switch by shifting the center's purpose away from a true presidential library. Shocking. lack of transparency, of course. So Protect Our Parks Inc. also claimed in its lawsuit, which was filed in the U.S. District Court on Monday, that the Chicago Park District and the City of Chicago don't have the authority to transfer public parkland to non-governmental entities such as the Obama Foundation. Now, very interesting that Chicago would be giving free land to the Obama Foundation. Why would that be? We owe him land now? What, because he did such a shitty job as president, now we owe him land? So it'd been long expected that the Park District would sell the land to the city for a nominal amount, and the city would enter in a long-term lease with the Obama Foundation. The lawsuit, which also names 3 Chicago area residents as plaintiffs, argues that such a maneuver would violate state law and represents a short con shell game and a corrupt scheme to deceive and seemingly legitimize an illegal land grab. Now, if you remember, Tony Resco and Obama, another illegal land grab that went, I wouldn't say went unpunished, because Tony Resco actually ended up in jail, but Barack Obama never had to pay the price for his sin on that. So the city and the Park District clearly realize and fully understand that this is established law precludes the Park District from arbitrarily transferring possession, use, and control of its dedicated, open, clear, and free public land in Jackson Park to a private, non-governmental entity, self-determined use. So they're trying to get free land. They have nothing to do with the government, Obama. So the plaintiffs accused the Obamas of committing an about-face on the original plans for the Jackson Park site to be the home of a national presidential library, which would hold historic documents and archives from Obama's presidency under the National Archives and Records Administration supervision. So firstly, I got to stop this story. Now, what historic documents would there be from Obama's presidency? Let's see. Would there be a copy of the omnibus bill where we paid thousands of dollars for signs and really saw not much infrastructure, the shovel-ready jobs? Or maybe a copy of that great deal with Iran that made them do nothing, we gave them cash, and we got nobody back for it? Would there be a copy of the national treasure of Obamacare, which is a complete disaster? It's so bad that even Dems barely talk about it anymore. So, now, let's see, back to the story, right? We're sidetracked on Obama's failure. The Obama Presidential Center is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to invest hundreds of millions of dollars that would create good jobs in the South Side, bring our communities together, and honor the legacy of Chicago's favorite son and daughter. Chicago's favorite son and daughter, okay. While some choose to stand in the way of progress from the South Side, we are focusing on making progress in every community in Chicago. Yeah, your wife made a lot of progress when she didn't want to take certain patients into the hospital. Our favorite son and daughter of Chicago, that's great. How many times did this guy go spend in Chicago while he was president? Protect Our Parks is not as well known as the Chicago-based Friends of Parks, which filed a federal lawsuit as part of the successful effort to block a proposal to put the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art along the lakefront south of Soldier Field. Friends of the Parks have opted against taking action against the Obama Center for legal and financial reasons, but also because of the political challenge of taking on Obama in the town where he built his career. Where did he build his career in Chicago? Would that be with the all I'm not there votes? Or maybe they're talking about Bill Ayer's place where he built his career. You know, unrepentant terrorist Bill Ayers, friend of Obama. So Friends of Parks has always said that they welcome the Obama Presidential Center to Chicago's South Side, but disagree with the choice to locate it on public parkland rather than the vacant land across the street from Washington Park. Interesting. Very interesting. So they have vacant land. They don't want that because they might have to buy it. So the center is supposed to be a 19-acre plot on the west edge of Jackson Park. Supposed to open in 2021. Like they were saying, it was supposed to be a presidential library, which is common. But when you read some of the kind of the plans of it all, it's not really so much a library as a lot of, like they were saying, jobs, quote unquote. Yeah. More like coercion, forcing people to vote one way, or maybe they're going to have these fake kickbacks so they could skim some money off the top of the Obama Foundation, just like the Hillary Clinton Foundation, or the Clinton Initiative Foundation, whatever it's called. Yeah, well, we already know this scam. Sorry, but nah, we've heard it well before. And I'm sure we'll hear it again from Obama because he's not done scamming and stealing the people's money. Yeah, Parkland school shooter. Remember last week we broke that story saying he was in the Promise program. Of course, one of the great Obama programs that didn't work. But the confessed mass shooter, Nicholas Cruz, he had no criminal record despite dozens of disciplinary infractions. But there was one case in which the Broward County school administrators were obligated to send him before a judge and didn't do it. So Nicholas Cruz trashed a middle school bathroom in 2013. He received a 3-day referral to the newly created at the time diversion program called the Promise program, designed to help kids who had committed misdemeanors avoid arrest and stay out of school to prison pipeline. So he didn't show. He didn't show at the program. At that point, school policy dictated that he should have been hauled before a judge of the Broward County Delinquency Division. And there's no record of that ever happening. Based on what the district had released, so possible negligence if no one ever followed up, right? Unfortunately, we won't get the truth on that one. So again, you see, it wasn't the gun. It was the multiple failures of not only a kid crying out, but repeatedly committing crimes and showing you what he was all about. Another sad but true story in the land of reality. And unfortunately, the only people paying the price there are the kids, the victims, and, obviously all the school and classmates. Sad. Well, close out the show by saying, have a great and safe week. And what do we have? 2 weeks, or really a week and a half till Memorial Day weekend, which around here means, well, around New Jersey where I grew up, that would mean prom weekend. Around here in Arizona, it's actually the end of school. Except for those clowns who went on strike and now have to stay extra, even though they're trying to turn half days into 2 days. The fraud of the teachers are doing it for the kids and sacrificing so much and don't want to work an extra day of school. Sorry, I got distracted. Everyone have a safe and great week. We'll see you next Tuesday on the Reality Check. Thank you for tuning in, and tell a friend and bring one next time.